consistent, or have you done anything a little differently?
Nope, I've been consistent, but I know this as a player, I grew to really dislike coaches who coached one way one week and one way the next week based on what they perceive to be a bigger game than another game. So what we try to do is just really stay focused on being consistent.
In what areas?
In our approach to teaching and what we demand and what we expect and how we deal with the players.
How much of that is kind of philosophy that you learned at Michigan?
You know, some of it is stuff that, you know, when you play, there are things you like and things you don't like, and you remember that. And so that was one thing that really I never liked. I never liked when a coach made one game bigger than another game. They're all big, you know, and you only get hopefully 13 chances to compete a year. And so I learned that a lot of places, but that's one thing that I didn't like as a player, and I always remember that.
How has the focus been this week with your players, knowing what kind of challenge you guys face?
You know, it's interesting. To me, they're like kids. They're like your kids. They will kind of conform and behave the way you steer them to or train them to. And so it's just been the same stuff. Take a proper angle, make a tackle, you know, throw it to the right guy, block a guy. So the focus has really been on us getting better, which is what we need to do.
On Monday, when we talked to the Michigan players, Troy, Steve Brown, they obviously talked about their affinity for you and how important you were to them. Is that something that's hard for you to not think about this week, that there are guys there who you connected with on such a personal level?
No. You know, I've had so many, I'm getting old. I'm 41, so I've had a lot of guys recruited. And, in fact, you know, so I've built a lot of relationships over the years, and the fun part is that now a bunch of guys that I've recruited and coached are coaching. But you know, to be honest with you, what I am happy about is watching them do well. You know, Stevie's playing a lot, and he's doing well. I watched him on tape. He's doing a good job. And Troy's back there running around. And so it's fun to watch him, you know, along with the likes of a Warren or Mouton or Steve Schilling or all those other guys I recruited over there. So it's what I enjoy is just watching those guys run around and play.
A lot of times when former coaches go back to where they coached for a while, if they're players, after the game it gets pretty emotional for.
Yeah.
I mean, do you anticipate that there's going to be almost like a receiving line?
No. I just what I want to do, because we're playing a talented Michigan team, and I think the fallacy of it all was that Michigan all of a sudden was not talented. And I don't think that after 40 years you just all of a sudden wake up one year and you're not talented. So Michigan is talented. And, in fact, to me, they looked, I don't want to say they looked more talented than Notre Dame, but they certainly weren't less talented than Notre Dame. So, and knowing what Charlie's put together in terms of recruiting the last few years, I know that they have some players. So really what I'm looking forward to and really focused on is playing the best game that Eastern Michigan can play, and then afterwards I'm sure it'll take care of itself.
Comes up every time that there's, you know, one of the in-state schools plays Michigan or Michigan State. You know, the kids who are on the MAC school, let's say, always, you know, they view that game a little differently. I mean, is that something that you've had to address with your players? Or?
I haven't addressed anything about any opponent, and I rarely do. And it's not just because I'm here. When I was at Michigan and we were playing Notre Dame, I didn't talk a lot about Notre Dame. Or if I was at Arizona State and we were playing Arizona, I didn't talk about Arizona because it was about Arizona State. And right now it's about Eastern Michigan. It's not really about Michigan. Not that I say that in a disrespectful way. That's just the reality of it.
I mean, you can think like that. Do you think the players?
I don't know what they think like, but I do think that they kind of model your behavior, just like your kids model your behavior as a parent. So if I'm focused on blocking and tackling, and they I would expect that they would be focused on blocking and tackling. So we spend a lot of time really just coaching ourselves, and we'll do that every week.
What's it been like to have Johnny Sears back? Kind of, you had him at Michigan, but
Yeah.
now to have him back, what's it been like?
It just is an example of how far these kids and how fast they grow up, because Johnny is a totally different kid than he was 3 years ago or however long ago it was, and it's unbelievable. I was talking to Eric, and it's interesting with players. I said, one thing is he really didn't really learn what to do. He's talented, but he didn't really know the position. And he came back here, and Eric would tell me when he first came back, he remembers everything. He's teaching the defense to these other guys. Well, you wouldn't know that because young players sometimes don't react quickly because they can't put it all together. They may be able to regurgitate it, but so it's just interesting the progress that he made that way. But he's fun to have back. And, we always loved Johnny. We liked him a lot. Coach Carr liked him. We loved Johnny, but we just couldn't condone what he was doing. But he is a good person, and we did a lot of soul searching, and it was, I think, the right decision to bring him here.
When it comes to giving somebody a second chance, how much does it have to be the right fit? I mean, obviously you knew him and you knew what kind of kid he was, but it also goes on you a little bit.
Well, it has to be the right coach coaching him, and the coach has to be willing not only to take that risk, but to do what it takes to help the player as best he can be successful. So I've always felt like I can coach all types of players and not afraid to coach a player who's has some issues, and especially if I feel like he'll respond to me and not just blow me off, and I knew Johnny would do that. So I think it does have to be the right fit and the right people.
Was there something that he said or did that showed you that?
No, it's interesting. I was not going to take him. And his coach, who I've known a long time, said, I told him that. I told him I wasn't. And at the time, he was just out playing at the JC, but he wasn't playing in any games or anything like that. He was just out there. And he would be a scout team player. And I didn't know this until later. He'd be scout team for defense when they were on offense and scout team for offense when they were on defense. And so he kind of let me say what I was going to say, and comes back to me 2 or 3 weeks later and says, you got to take this guy. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. It's good for you. It's good for him. He's, And, I thought about it some more and talked to him some more and wanted to make sure that he was doing the right things. And I was satisfied with that, and I think it was a good decision.
The decision for you to just keep in touch with him after you left Michigan, you said that was important to him, that you and Vance both, I mean, is that just protocol, how you normally do that with guys that you? Well,
you want, when you recruit, to me, this is a profession, I think. It's a profession. And I think the people that really care about this profession want to do things the right way. And so when you recruit a kid, that takes hours and hours of time. And so those should be legitimately true relationships. And then if you have relationships like that, you don't want to see any kid not, waste a great opportunity. And you got to understand, this was a kid that I decided to recruit, not even having seen him play one snap of football. I recruited Sears by watching him on a track workout and a non-padded football workout.
First time.
Yeah. And so, but I knew he was a terrific talent. And, if you go into Michigan and start as the kick returner, I can't remember what year that was, redshirt freshman or sophomore, and you're playing snaps at corner, I mean, you're probably pretty talented. And so, that being said, it wasn't like I was just going to forget about Johnny. Now, was I disappointed? Of course. I was really disappointed and hurt by what he did, but these are kids, and you get over it.
What do you expect from your players on Saturday, and why, Ron, did you come to Eastern Michigan?
I first expect our players to compete as hard as they can, and I want them to enjoy playing in the game. We finally started doing that in the second half of last week's game. And so, I told them at halftime, I hope you're having as much fun as I am, because I'm having fun. And the game should be that way. Now, I'm not saying that you're enjoying the results all the time if you don't win, because we're all in it to win. But I'm saying I enjoy coaching on the sidelines. I enjoy coaching at practice. I love coaching. And I hope they love playing. And so I hope that they do that and not become distracted by whatever takes place during the game. And that's really, you asked me about, what we, you kind of inferred about me maybe talking more about Michigan or Northwestern or Army. But, we try to teach them not to get distracted. And that means they need to be focused on what they're doing. Because it's hard enough to execute a certain block or a certain tackle or a certain throw. So what I hope for them on Saturday is that they don't become distracted by anything and that they continue to play to the best of their ability and they enjoy playing and enjoy the experience.
You said they just started having fun in the second half of the last game, so do you think they were tense?
Well, I just think they have to understand, it's all mindset. This football is a mindset. It really is, and it's an attitude, and it's learning how to be successful. And I can speak to it because when I went to Cal, we weren't successful in the beginning, so I can understand exactly what they're thinking and what they're going through. And I can also understand what they're going to be like when they finally realize that we can win too, and we can win consistently, and if we do the right things, we will win. And I think that's going to happen here. And so I came here because I thought it was a fantastic opportunity to come to a place where football was important and where the president wanted to support football wholeheartedly along with the Board of Regents and the athletic director. So that's why I came here, and I thought there was a chance to win, and I love this part of the country, and I like the people here. That's why I came.
What attracted you to Tyrone for hiring?
I got lucky. I got lucky because a good friend of mine knew Tyrone and watched him work and said you should really strongly consider hiring him. And I didn't know him, just in passing. I didn't know him. And so I talked to a few more people, and even that being said, I still didn't really probably gather as much information as I should have. But I knew that he was a guy who would be well trained. I knew he had a lot of experience. I knew he had roots here, and I knew that he could help us. I didn't know he was a great drill coach. I didn't know that he could relate the position to players, and I didn't know that he was such a good person, and I didn't know that he would be as good a coach as he is right now, and he's going to be a great coach if he really chooses to stay in this profession.
It would seem like he'd be a really good recruiter.
I think that recruiting is always hard work, and it's based on hard work. And a long time ago, I learned this from Rod Marinelli, who recruited me. He said, you think you're going to go out there and recruit based on your personality, and you're not. And when I first started recruiting, I could remember getting my butt kicked because I didn't evaluate properly. Not only evaluate could they play, but could they play for us, or would they play for a higher maybe level? And then, it came down to trying to do it in terms of my personality and not the facts, because in the end, the parents sit down and they want to know why should you go to school A? What are the reasons? And so recruiting, your personality is one thing, but understanding the work is another.
Someone who's had so much success professionally, as a football player, and obviously he's made a lot of money and stuff. For him to take a job like that must speak to his interest level.
Well, he wants to coach. He wants to coach. And, we have long hours here. We're young, so we come and we staff meet at 7 a.m. And so Coach Szabo has about had enough of that. And so I make a joke about it. But so it's hard. We'll see at the end of the year. We'll see, when November hits and you can barely keep your eyes open. We'll see how much he loves it then. But I think he will, and I enjoy having him here.
How important was it to bring guys who you knew to the staff? I mean, Szabo, Kurt.
Oh, it's critical because They know you, and they know what you expect, and you know them, and you know what to expect. And honestly, and it really was a recommendation through Phil, but not really verified. But besides Tyrone, there's not a guy here that wasn't vetted, if you will. They all were, and even though I didn't know Ken Karcher, I knew many, many people that knew him, and his resume spoke for itself. And then after spending a half a day with him, I was pretty secure in who he was and what he would do. So Tyrone really is the one who I knew the least about, to be honest with you.
Do you see a lot of your personality coming out in the way that they coach and run drills?
I don't know. I don't pay that much attention. I think you have to coach in your personality, you know, and I think that's important because the players see through it. You know, you have to be yourself. And so I don't know. I can't answer that question quite that way. I think, but what I do see is I do think the guys are coaching in their personality, and it's interesting. But I think as you develop your personality as a coach, it comes from several sources. I would answer your question that way.
Is there any one thing that changes a losing history to a winning history? I mean, I know that winning is that key, but in getting there, what is the key to that?
You know, I can speak to what happened with us at Cal. It was the leaders of the team and the core of the team having had enough of losing to say to the fringe people on the team, enough's enough. And they really started holding the fringe players accountable to the tune of either you get on the boat or you get off. And we'll move on without you, and we'll play with 32 guys or 40 guys, and we don't have to play with 85. And so that I remember clearly as being one of the reasons we turned that program around. So, all right.